緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。分かっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
Hey everybody, welcome to another lesson of learning Japanese. Today we're going to go over another anime line today, and we got a special one today, or I consider it special because we're covering one of my favorite airing shows right now, Boku no Hero Academia, and this is going to be the show My Hero Academia. And so the line that we're going to be covering today, it is going to be from episode 44. I'm not sure what the count is for the third season, whatever episode of the third season it is of, but overall it's episode 44, and in English it reads, "No matter what the circumstances, I don't ever want to be the type of person who leaves a friend in need behind. I'm perfectly aware the act of saving people comes with risks. That's why heroes are called heroes."
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。分かっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
So this is a line said by the character Shoji. Pretty underrated character, such a cool guy. Kind of overshadowed by the main three male characters of the show. But here we are, giving him some limelight because he said such a badass line in this moment. So of course, as per the norm, we're going to jump into this line and break it down bit by bit. You may have noticed that it's actually kind of two lines here, but who cares, right? Let's get some knowledge in our brains.
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。
Starting off, we're going to start our first sentence in the line with the word ore. This is of course going to be the first person pronoun. That means I, basically a rather masculine first person pronoun. Right after it, we're going to be marking ore as the topic with the topic marker wa. Directly following that is the word donna. Donna is, what would we call this word? Technically kind of like a pre-noun adjective or something. It's going to be modifying the word right after it, which is the word jyoukyou, and this is going to translate to circumstances. So donna kind of means what or what kind of. So here, if it's modifying the word jyoukyou, donna jyoukyou is going to translate to basically what kind of circumstances. We're going to change that once we get a feel of the rest of the sentence because it's not going to sound as natural. Donna jyoukyou is actually going to be part of a grammar pattern here, the first grammar pattern to appear, and this is actually going to be a pretty tough one. I think if we were to rate it on like the JLPT scale, this would be N2 or N1. And the grammar pattern that we're talking about is something blank blank de arou to, and this is going to translate to basically it has a lot of things that it could translate to. It could translate to no matter, or however, or even if. Most commonly, it'll probably translate to whichever, whatever, something along those lines. And you use it to express that, like, even if this happens, whatever happens, it's not going to affect that the statement that I'm going to say after it is true, basically. So, donna jokyou de arou to is going to translate to basically whatever the circumstances may be, we're still gonna do this, or no matter what the circumstances are, something, something, something. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are, something along those lines. And so just a little note here, the de arou to grammar pattern is also commonly seen in the form de are, and they'll mean basically the same thing there. So with the construction of that grammar pattern, we know that basically it can kind of serve as the conjunction to a sentence because we have the part before it, and then the part after it is going to be the statement that is like still going to be true no matter whatever kind of thing. So with that said, we now have to fill in the second blank to the grammar pattern, and it's going to be the second half of the sentence basically.
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。
kurushimu tomoを捨て置く人間になりたくはない. And this is going to translate to I don't want to become a person who abandons a friend who is suffering. First word right there, kurushimu, is going to be the verb basically to suffer. It's basically the verb form of the adjective kurushi, which means basically harsh, painful, difficult, whatever. And so we're going to be using this verb to modify a noun, which will be the noun tomo, and this is going to mean friend. It's less common than the word tomodachi. I believe the character here, Shoji, does kind of have a peculiarness to his speech. I'm not sure what kind of type of speech style you'd call it, but he does seem to kind of talk in a way that isn't perfectly casual. So again, kurushimu is a verb, and it's basically acting as like a one verb clause modifying the noun right after it. So kurushimu tomo is going to be friend who is suffering, basically, or friend who suffers. We're going to be marking that friend who suffers with a direct object marker o, because we're going to make it the direct object of a verb that's about to be performed or whatever. That is going to be the verb suteoku, which is going to translate to, to leave behind, to abandon. This also here is going to modify the noun right after it. So this whole, technically suteoku is describing the noun, but you could kind of attach it to the direct object it has, and we'll make that the whole clause. Kurushimu tomo o suteoku. That will be abandon a friend who is suffering. And so if that clause modifies the noun right after, which is ningen, which means human or person, then kurushimu tomo o suteoku ningen is going to be person who abandons friend who is suffering, basically. Now in turn, we're going to plug this into another grammar pattern. So we kind of stacked a clause modifying a noun into a clause modifying a noun into another grammar pattern, which is ni naru, which means to become. So this is going to be the thing that we are going to use to become a person who abandons a friend who is suffering. And so the grammar pattern ni naru, all you have to do is have a word. It could be a noun or an adjective. You have the particle ni, then you have the verb naru, which means to become. So blank ni naru means to become blank. But here we're gonna do another grammar pattern. Oh man. We're gonna conjugate the naru into its desirative form. So basically to say you want to become. So instead of naru, it turns into naritai. But now we're gonna do another grammar pattern, and we're gonna turn it into a negative, as in you do not want to become. So naritai becomes naritaku. Ordinarily that's what it would be, the kind of more common nai form, but here we're not going to do that. We're going to do a little deviation where we don't drop the wa there. We leave the wa in there, and what it's doing is basically acting as an emphasis or a contrast marker to really plant in the idea that you don't want this. So naritaku wa nai, that's what it's going to be. It's basically the same thing as naritaku nai, which means basically I don't want to become, but the naritaku wa nai is going to have a bit more meaningfulness to it, an emphasis on the not wanting. So all together, this first sentence in the line, 俺はどんな状況であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。
Literally translated, that'll be like, I, whatever the circumstances may be, do not want to become a person who leaves a friend who is suffering behind. And more naturally, we'll turn that into like, no matter what the circumstances, I don't ever want to be the type of person who leaves a friend in need behind.
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。分かっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
Alright, now let's move on to the second sentence of the line, or not really sentence because this sentence comprises of 3 sentences, but the second line in the bigger line, I guess. So the first sentence in this second half is going to start with Wakatte, which is going to be the verb wakaru, which means basically to understand, and it's in its te form plus iru to mean it has been done, or it's in the state of being complete. So the complete form of to understand is basically I already know, I understand already. We'll naturally turn that into I'm perfectly aware. The wording there kind of suits the situation more, in my opinion.
分かっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。
Next sentence, 助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う. This will translate to the act of saving people comes with risks. First up, we have the verb 助ける, which means basically to save. After that, we have the phrasing toiu, which is a very complicated concept, hard to explain in a lesson here like this because it would require its own lesson because it's so convoluted. But to sum it up in a basic manner, it kind of directly translates to be called. The to there is the quoting particle, and it's quoting the word right before it, which is Tasukeru, and then you is the verb to say. We don't directly interpret it as that verb. We kind of interpret it as its own standalone phrase, toiu. For simplicity's sake in this lesson, to not get too into it, it's safe to say that we can kind of interpret the you there, the verb, as part of a clause that's modifying the noun right after it, which is koui, which is going to be the word that means basically deed or act. So then tasukeru toiu koui is going to be the act or the deed known as or called saving. The direct translation is pretty weird. So you kind of have to think of it from a Japanese frame of mind to make it natural. Following that, we have the particles ni and wa. We're using ni here because the verb that we're about to use, which means basically to accompany, is used with this particle. Tomonau, which means basically to accompany or to go hand in hand with. If we're saying something goes hand in hand with something else, we mark that something else with the particle ni. And so here we're saying the act of saving people, risku, which is going to be the katakana word for risk, the English word risk, which of course means risk. We mark the risk with the ga because it's the thing performing the action of accompanying or coming hand in hand with, and we mark the act of saving people as the thing that gets accompanied.
わかっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
And now finally we're going to move on to the last sentence of this line, which is quite possibly the simplest one. It's just going to read Dakara koso hiro to yobareru.
だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
This is going to have actually kind of two grammar patterns here despite being so simple and short. First up we have the dakara, which is actually that's another grammar pattern in of itself kind of, so three grammar patterns. Dakara translates to because of that. Usually kara is used as a conjunction to mean because, and we use it as a conjunction to connect the two clauses of one sentence, but here we're using dakara at the beginning of the sentence, which means that it's referring to what you said before this as the reason. And so what you're going to say after dakara then will be what happens because of the reason, and that will be hiro to yobareru, which means people are called heroes. Before that appears though, we actually have the particle koso, which means it's kind of a really hard emphasis adding on to the kara, which means because. So instead of just saying like because, it might turn into something like that's exactly because, or that's exactly why, or it's for that reason exactly, or that reason specifically, or something along those lines. And again, like I just said, right after koso is the word hiro, which means hero. We have the to being used as a quote marker there because we're using a verb that kind of uses quotes, which is yobu, which means to call. Here it's in its passive form, yobareru, which means basically to be called. And so the implication here, the subject, implied subject is going to be, you know, them, the kids here who are heroes in trainings or heroes in general. So hiro to yobareru is going to be called hero, but the implied subject of course is heroes, or they are called heroes, or heroes are called heroes. Add that on with the first part of the sentence, dakara koso, and that'll basically just turn into that's why heroes are called heroes, or that's exactly why heroes are called heroes.
だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
Alright, so there you go. Let's combine all of these sentences. I think there's 4 total. Some of them are really short, so we basically just consider 2 lines in one big line. 俺はどんな状況であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない. This is going to translate to no matter what circumstances, I don't ever want to be the type of person who leaves a friend in need behind. わかっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う. I'm perfectly aware the act of saving people comes with risks. だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる. That's exactly why heroes are called heroes.
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。分かっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
So now let's just scan the Japanese here again real quick and point out the grammar patterns that were in here. There was a decent amount of them. I'd probably say more than 6. Let's see if I'm right. So first up we have the most difficult grammar pattern, probably de arou to, which is also commonly seen as de are, and this will translate to basically whatever thing or whichever thing or whoever. If you're talking about people or if you're just talking about things, it doesn't matter what it is, the thing that you're gonna say after this grammar pattern will basically still be true. Verbs modifying nouns, basically clauses modifying nouns. Kurushimu tomo, friend who suffers. Suteoku ningen, person who abandons. We have the ni naru grammar pattern, which means to become. Ningen ni naru means to become human. We had the desiderative tai form, which means basically to want to do the verb. We used it with naru, so naritai is going to translate to want to become. Then we changed it into the negative nai form. So naritai turns into naritaku wanai. That's kind of a variant of naritaku nai. It kind of emphasizes the negativeness of your statement. We have the te form plus iru to express that a verb has been basically performed to completion and it's in that after effect state. We use that with the verb wakaru, which means to understand. So wakatte is going to mean I understand, basically. I'm in the state of having understood it. We have the toiu phrasing that basically means to be called this or thing that is known as this, or yeah, so it's kind of hard to explain. Yeah, then in the last sentence we had the kara conjunction used at the beginning of the sentence, so it was Dakara. We used it in conjunction. Saying in conjunction might be a little confusing there. We used it in combination with the particle koso to add a huge emphasis. So Dakara koso means basically that's exactly why, something along those lines, as opposed to just that's why. Then finally we had the passive form of the verb yobu, which means to call. So yobareru means to be called. And I was not keeping count of how many grammar patterns that was. But I'm pretty sure it was more than 6. And yeah, so there you have it. That's a good line from the show Boku no Hero Academia. And I'm really hoping that you learned something from that decently sized line. Maybe we covered a lot of things that you did already know, but hopefully one of those at least was informative or enlightening.
緑谷、俺はどんな状況下であろうと苦しむ友を捨て置く人間になりたくはない。分かっている。助けるという行為にはリスクが伴う。だからこそヒーローと呼ばれる。
Alright, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Anime Line of the Day. Remember, if there were grammar patterns mentioned for this line, they'll be mentioned in the description or the pinned comment below with links to the individual lessons on them. You can also probably find them in the playlist of our complete grammar video series shown on the screen right here alongside our anime playlist. And last but not least, don't forget to try to translate the bonus line we provided. Leave your translation in a comment below. Check out our Patreon, like the video, and subscribe. With all that said and done, see you next time.